Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Monday, June the 13th, 2016. And I have on the line a gentleman who has been with us on many occasions, but I've never given him a formal introduction, and I would like to share a little bit of his background with you. And he has been an attorney. I'm not sure if he still holds a license and is still practicing law, but he has been a lawyer, and he was a former general manager of a major real estate portal. He's been a school teacher as well, and he was a partner with the London and Paris offices of the law firm Cordet Brothers, and he was the European General Counsel and Senior Corporate Counsel at homestore.com, which is now move.com, and the general manager of Home Gain from 2006 to 2013. And I'm speaking, of course, of Louis Cammarosano. We all know him from smallgold.com. And we're very grateful to have Louis back on the line. So here we go.
Pay as much attention as you can. Focus on the story as much as you can. They actually enjoy when people make up all these inconsistencies because you're still spending your time on their story.
Right.
So they're still controlling the narrative. Whether you can claim it's BS and you don't like it, and look at this, it's ridiculous. You're not doing anything constructive to combat what they're doing. All you're doing is complaining about what they've done. Or you can focus not even on the problem. You can not even focus on the solution. You could just focus on what you choose to focus on.
Well, that's true.
You know, it doesn't all have to be a reaction to, because some of the problems, there are a lot of them are in your own head. They really don't impact you, but you get so worked up that you think, oh, this is a crime. This impacts me. When it really doesn't.
Really doesn't.
A lot of this stuff really doesn't matter to us. It only matters because, just like when you watch a movie and you get emotionally invested in the characters and you cry about it or you get upset, but it really has no impact on your life. It's just a movie. And a lot of these events that happen, they have nothing to do with you.
Correct.
But they make you get involved. They make you have an opinion. They make you complain about them. They make you talk to your friends about them. They make you do videos. It really has nothing to do with you.
And where all of that you just described, where it all comes from, are emotional triggers, including the movies and the book that you're reading or whatever. Whatever the source is, it's all based in an emotional trigger. And the mainstream media, and more importantly, the people behind the curtain that control the mainstream media, are very well adept at doing exactly that. They are very good at it. They're very good at continually pushing these emotional trigger buttons that get you invested emotionally, because no one can tell you how to feel. Only you as an individual can tell you how to feel.
And to coin a phrase, Rory, we need to have self-triggers. We need to fire our own firearm, so to speak. And I mean that metaphorically.
Right.
If you allow others to trigger you, then you're being controlled and manipulated. But if you decide where to focus your fire, then you lead a much happier life.
And it's a lot easier.
Self-triggering is what I'm saying. And it doesn't have to be negative. It's what you decide to focus on.
Exactly. Well, like I said, I'm personally, I try to focus on solutions, point out questions that need to be asked, and try to help people to see, these are the questions that deserve attention. And hopefully you, as the reader or the person listening to this, will ask these questions of yourself, because we can't get to the solution if we don't know what the question is. And we can't get to the solution without having information to feed that, proper information, truthful information, that isn't emotionally driven, that's just facts. It's just, let's just look at the facts. And, when you've got someone in a situation that's keeping a door closed. Well, why are they keeping that door closed when you've got, evidence that's being lost or misplaced or whatever it is, however it's disappeared by the local authorities? Then there should be a question. Well, why is that? Why are you, as a trained professional, misplacing evidence in such a high-profile case?
Unless you're doing it intentionally.
Unless you're doing it intentionally. Now we're getting somewhere. That's my point. Is that if you ask these questions, then Occam's razor comes into play, and that is the simplest answer is usually the correct answer. And the simplest answer is you misplace evidence in a high profile case because it's intentional. It needs to be disappeared. You don't discuss the fact that you don't discuss on mainstream media the fact that someone is keeping the door closed so that people cannot get out of the nightclub. You don't discuss that because you don't want people to question it, when in fact that is a huge question. And where is that person? Why is there audio tape talking about 3, 4 people and one of them having bombs and so forth inside of this nightclub? All of this evidence is all coming out now. So, and they all point to the same conclusion. This was a false flag operation, and it should be treated and viewed as such, period. So, it's enough of my nonsense.
No, it's all valid. All right.
But that's not why we're here.
No.
And
we're here for grander purposes, Rory.
Grander purposes. And if you haven't figured out, we're speaking with Mr. Louis Cammarosano over at smallgold.com, and that is spelled SMAULGLD.com. Louis, how you doing today?
Rory, I'm doing grand. How are you?
I'm all right. And why are we on this call today?
I think to discuss the precious metals markets.
Oh, yeah, the gold and silver.
There you
and
go.
All the coins that have been floating around, coming out of the various mints from around the world. And you want to start with the U.S. mint? You want to start with the Canadian mint? You want to start with Perth? Where are we starting at?
Well, let's dispense with the Canadian Mint because they have only reported through the first quarter, and we covered that. The Canadian Mint reports quarterly, and we won't hear about their sales from April, May, and June until sometime in late August. So we know that the Canadian Mint had a record year last year. I think 34.3 million not Canadian maple leafs, but ounces of silver, the bulk of which were Canadian maple leafs. And that's up from about 600,000 just 10 years ago.
Wow.
So the Canadian Mint story is an amazing story of how they went from a kind of very small shop, much smaller than the United States Mint, and are basically competing in ounces with the United States. And in the first quarter, they did produce 10.6 million. We've covered that as well, which means that they're on pace for over 40 million ounces this year, which is a good year for the U.S. Mint. And again, that's up from about 600,000 in 2004 or 2005. Now, going over to the U.S. Mint, we mentioned that the U.S. Mint is now 5 months in a row has sold more than 4 million coins. If we're talking silver now, 4 million coins each month. And at the end of May, we're at 23.4 million American Silver Eagles sold. The May report showed a record May of Silver Eagles sold, and they beat 2014's record by about 500,000 coins. Now, the U.S. Mint is on rationing sales of about 1 million a week, which equates to about 4 million a month, which they've been doing every month since January. And the Doc and Eric Dubin did a show on this, and they talked about how the authorized purchasers were basically taking whatever they can get in anticipation that there might be a shortage again later on this year, and that's when they can boost their premiums. Because last year, when there was the silver shortage of American Eagles, the premiums went up to about 50%. And that's where they make a fortune. That's where they're charging $4, $5, $6, $7 extra per coin when they only paid $2 per coin, directly from the U.S. Mint. So what the Doc and Eric Dubin said were the authorized purchasers are now sitting on a lot of inventory. And what they're doing is they're now going to release that, which drives the premiums down. They're going to sell them basically to others, other dealers, basically at their cost, and then of course the dealers will mark them up a bit. So right now, American Silver Eagle premiums are very low, and the Mint was very clever because by doing this very high rationing, they enticed the authorized purchasers to buy them all, but they they allocated them or rationed them high enough such that on the retail side there was enough out there that the retail buyers didn't scoop them all up. So what the authorized purchasers are doing now, they're going to try to sell down that inventory, even at basically a cost, so that they can continue, if they come off allocation, if the U.S. Mint comes off allocation, to buy even more, because the more that they buy, then the higher allocation or they get from their rationing, that they can then build up their stockpile even more in anticipation of a shortage later on in the year. So
Now,
the
I
it, it,
want
go-
to I want to interrupt you real quick, and I
sure.
apologize. During that show, and this was last week's metals and market update over at Silver Doctors, they also said that the allocations, there were indications that
Yes.
the rationing was going to stop, and that's important because that is the reason that plays into these guys releasing their current inventory in
Mhm.
order to build back up.
Right. And the more that and the reason they want to sell off their inventory now is so they can buy more. And the
Right,
way they buy more is by having a high level of purchases from the U.S. Mint. So they get in with the U.S. Mint to say we can buy as much as we want now because look how much we bought in the past.
right,
So what the interesting part of this though is that the U.S. Mint. This goes back to the show we did on, I think it was called Silver Investors one investor away from explosion. Is they very cleverly allocated enough coins such that there would not be a shortage. And to your point, they also allocated to the point that they're not going to pass last year's record. So in other words, if they front end load the amount of coins that they sell and they keep that near record pace, then what will happen is they'll meet demand and there will never be the shortage situation.
right,
So what may happen here is, unless something dramatic happens, if we just see the type of sales we've been having, which are elevated for sure, and they're ahead of last year, but if it doesn't accelerate from here, then the U.S. Mint has kind of won this little game here because they'll have avoided a shortage, and the dealers won't have their windfall profits of selling at $5, $6, $7 per coin into a shortage because one might not develop because they minted enough. And this goes back to the podcast we did. They don't want there to be a shortage. They don't
right.
want to attract attention because they can manage to sell 45, 50 million. That's okay. That's kind of stretching it. What they cannot do and they cannot have is demand to double and have to try to sell 100, 150 million coins. They can't do that.
And they
So
don't want to do it.
well, they can't do it and they don't want to do it, but that's why they don't want this whiff of, oh my goodness, look what's happening. The US Mint is sold out and they're at record levels. That just makes people who are on the sidelines and know anything about silver. There's headlines. They come pouring into the market, and guess what? There's no silver.
Exactly.
And they saw that last year, and that was a disaster. And that's why you don't see any issues. And that's why premiums are very low. And unfortunately, when prices are low, at least with silver, people don't buy it. They buy it more. I mean, they are buying it. But what I'm saying is the outside investor likes to jump on the momentum. So they like to
Right.
see the price going up. They like to hear there's a shortage. And if there isn't one, then you don't get that momentum. We'll see how it plays out. But
I
if they,
still, I'm still going to stand by. They're not going to. If there's a new record this year, then it will be very muted,
oh, I agree. So,
and I'm going to stand by that. I've been saying it for months,
yep,
and if you just take what we've seen in the first few months, the first 5 months of 4 million a month, that's 48 million. They sold 47 million last year.
yep.
Okay, so there's a little bit of room for play in there, but not much. I mean, they can be it can be managed to the point, especially now that they're not rationing the sales. Now they can manage it in whatever way they want to because they've made this announcement. We're not rationing sales. So, you know, if somebody calls up and says, "Well, we want 2 million silver eagles," and they only get 1 million, there's not gonna be any flags sent up.
Nope. The other thing, Rory, is they could always shut down like they did last year. They shut down the first week of December. So what? You shut down the last week of November if you had 48.
Exactly. And that's been part of my argument as well, is that they could come in right after Thanksgiving and close down because they've got to quote change the dies, and we're done with sales. And now all of a sudden you have 4 or 5 weeks, million and a quarter that's off the table. So
And it takes 4 weeks to change the date on the next
on
American
the next
Silver
one,
Eagle.
right?
I was very disappointed this year. I thought this was the 30th year anniversary. They would do something to the coin. They put no effort into it whatsoever. I sent you one thing that's quite impressive is the Canadian Mint puts out a wide array of products. I'm not just talking
Yep.
about the Maple Leaf coins, but even the Maple Leafs they do in these wildlife series and birds of prey series. But they put out massive different types of coins, colored coins, different shaped coins. And the U.S. Mint, it's almost like this is a nuisance to them making these silver eagles.
Right.
So they don't put any. It doesn't seem like there's any pride or joy in producing these coins. They don't market them. I've never received a catalog from the U.S. Mint trying to show all the different types of coins that they make. It seems like they make what they can, and that's about it.
Well, I mean, you have to remember that the U.S. Mint is controlled by the Treasury,
Treasury.
and their system is one of fiat currency, and this is the absolute mortal enemy of fiat currency. Period. So why would they want to bring all this attention to it?
And
I
you
mean,
have
they
Ron
don't.
Paul to thank for this. I don't know if people know that the silver and gold eagle programs came about as a result of he and Lou Lerman had produced a paper for Reagan when inflation was really high at the very beginning of Reagan's administration. And what they wanted to do was analyze whether they should go back to the gold standard. And of course, eventually they said no. But one of the offshoots was they had made a recommendation that they would produce these bullion coins. They made of gold and silver for the first time since 1933 for gold, and the first time since 1964 for silver. And that these were kind of the brainchild of Ron Paul and then former Governor Lou Lerman. That's why we have this program. But this program was never designed to be a substitute for people saving in dollars. It was a bullion product, but they never anticipated at the time people would be buying 50, 60 million of these things each month.
Right, each year.
Oh, that's right.
Now, what about what's going on with the Perth Mint? Because they've had the kangaroo program. Their koalas are not koalas, but
Cool.
the kookaburras are sold out for the
Right.
year, which they only produce 1 million. And the understanding that I have is that all the fractional kookaburras and
They're
maybe
done.
all fractionals across the board are all sold out as well. Which that's going to send some send some people in that direction as well, or it's going to
Sure.
bring some attention, some much to the disdain of the U.S. Mint. That's going to bring attention to the silver program.
Yes. Now, the Perth Mint historically is not a silver shop. The Perth Mint has always been a more gold driven because they mine a lot of gold there. They refine gold there. They do silver too, but the Perth Mint has been historically a gold shop. And it wasn't really until the silver kangaroo was introduced last September that they really sold significant amounts of silver. Sure, they sold the kookaburra, they sold the koala, but they had limited mintages. And then even those smaller fractional coins, while they may sell a lot of those in total ounces, they never really sold that much. It wasn't until they sold 3.5 million ounces of silver in September, which was 10 times more than they had sold the year before. That's an incredible amount when they introduced the silver kangaroo. Now, that coin has sold, as we mentioned, over 1 million every month since September. And then in May, it dipped to the lowest it's been. It was still 974,000. 974, 865. So that's the total amount of silver that the Perth Mint sold, which is good. It's far better than they've ever sold, but it's still what the U.S. Mint sells in a week. So the Perth Mint has moved itself up from a couple of million ounces a year, basically, to something in the 12 to 15 range, which is fairly significant, especially since it really didn't sell that much silver in the past. And those kookaburras and koalas, and they're more of a collector coin than a bullion coin because they come out at a premium. They're priced well over spot, and they're limited mintage, million each. They weren't designed like the kangaroo was to be designed in as much as the market will bear.
Right.
And we saw that they sold 3.5 million when in September the Canadian Mint and the U.S. Mint were sold out. So people who just wanted straight bullion from a government type coin, they moved over to the kangaroo. But since then, they haven't come anywhere near selling 3.5 million. The highest I think they sold was about 1.8 million, and now they're down to about 974 in May. And I would anticipate they'd probably sell close to that, maybe a little less in the summer months, and then move back up. But they're at elevated levels, and they seem to be at those levels. They're going to stay around 1 million a month, it seems. Maybe a little lower in the summer months, but then higher in the January, February, March, and then the fall months they should pick up as well.
I mean, it's a nice looking coin, and it's a great alternative to the U.S. Mint. The premiums are typically a little bit lower,
They are.
and it's a nice coin. I mean, and once again, well, and the one of the things that's different about the kangaroo versus the silver eagle is that the kangaroo is 4 nines and the silver eagle
Yes.
is only 3 nines. So it's the kangaroo and the Canadian Mint, both the Perth Mint and the Canadian Mint are on the new standard, whereas the U.S. Mint is still on the old standard of 3 nines, and that's what everybody wants, the 4 nines now. I
And so
mean,
everyone understands that even though the U.S. Mint coin is 3 nines, it's still 1 ounce of silver. It just means that the coin is slightly larger, and the coin itself weighs a little more than an ounce to compensate for the fact that there's 1 ounce of silver, and then there's a little bit of copper in there. And it's the same with the 24 karat gold, 22 karat gold eagle. That coin has an ounce of gold in it, but it also has some additional copper and silver in the gold eagle. Whereas the 24 karat 4.9 American buffalo and Canadian gold maple leaf are 4 nines, and they're 1 ounce and just 1 ounce because the whole coin is made entirely of gold.
which is what we like.
Yeah, there's no reason to have a mixture in your metals. The only reason they ever mixed metals, like for example, in the U.S. coins pre 1965, was to make them more durable because silver is soft. So if you figure you harden it with copper, it'll last longer. But when people are collecting these things and handling them with gloves or keeping them in flips or rolls, there's no need to have a coin that's toughened up with base metals.
Yeah, it's not that they're not out in circulation.
No. So there's no need for them to be mixing.
Well, Lewis, where do we go from here? Is that about?
That's it on the mint. Unless you want to talk about negative interest rates or anything else.
Well, I think there's enough narrative out there on negative interest rates, and we've got 2 days before that happens, before they come out with the latest dog and pony show.
You're not going to have negative interest rates in 2 days.
What's that?
They're not going to announce negative interest rates at the next Fed meeting.
They're probably never going to announce that
No.
until it happens. And then when it happens, then it'll be too late for anybody to do anything about it. But I think you've made a good argument against negative interest rates because it would impact the dollar and how people are forced to acquire dollars around the world. It would have a tremendous impact on that.
The only way that the United States could ever do negative interest rates is if they convince the rest of the world to do them and go further into negative territory than the U.S. Mint. I mean, than the U.S. Than the U.S. Treasury. In other words, if Japan has a negative interest rate of, let's say, 1.2%, ECB 0.8%, everywhere else somewhere 0.5%, then the U.S. could go 0.1% negative because they'd still be looking better. You lose less money with the U.S. Treasuries than you do at any other government bond.
Yeah, which is a great program. I'm going to buy an instrument, a financial instrument that I know is guaranteed, telling me that you're going to lose money on this.
Less money than you would lose elsewhere, Rory.
Less money than you. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. But gold doesn't pay any interest. Silver doesn't pay any interest, but they don't have negative interest rates on them either.
And nor do most stocks, which people don't understand.
Yeah.
Most stocks don't pay dividends. That's always been a false argument. But now it's so obvious with negative interest rates in the news that an argument against gold that it doesn't pay interest is basically a red herring.
Yeah.
Also, you can't eat gold. There's a lot of stupid things that people say about gold that get taken as serious criticisms.
Yeah, you can't eat gold, but can you eat $20 bills?
Well, of course not.
Oh, you can. Oh, okay. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, and dollar bills don't pay interest either.
Oh, they don't?
Well,
you mean if I have $1,000 worth of $20 bills at home, I'm not going to earn interest on those?
No, they don't multiply. They don't join up with each other, and you come back 20 years later. There's 1,200 of them. Doesn't happen.
And if I put it in a bank, if I loan my $1,000 to a bank by way of a certificate of deposit, a CD, and they pay me 0.5% for an 18-month period, man, I am living high on the hog. So my $1,000 is turned into what, $1,001?
And if you decide not to roll it over and you ask for the money, you get 50 questions. You get brought into another room. Like,
oh yeah, yeah.
What are you going to do with that?
Yeah. What are you going to do with your money?
Now that it is your money and hasn't been loaned to us. That's right.
Right.
They're like, no, we need to extend your loan. Why don't you just leave it here? Like, why don't you mind your business?
Right. Well, we've been speaking with Mr. Louis Cammarosano, and it's always a pleasure, Louis. And you can find all of Louis's great analysis and other interesting works over at smallgold.com. Louis will pick it up in a couple of weeks and take it from there.
Thanks, Rory. Thanks, everyone.